Hi. Okay, folks, I think I'll start at least with our introductions so that we can try to stay on time. I see we have about 40 or so people joined so far, so I will start. Michelle, I think I started the recording. Can you see that? Just want to be sure.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to just welcome everyone on behalf of the New Jersey statewide Dam Removal Partnership, or the partnership as I'll call it going forward. The partnership is a collaboration of nonprofits and government agencies that seeks to advance removal of antiquated, dangerous, or ecologically detrimental dams. Its members meet quarterly to discuss beneficial dam removal projects and to exchange information regarding policy, regulatory issues, funding, and practical considerations of dam removal. The partnership also provides information to the public about how dams and dam removal may affect their communities and their lives. The partnership's website is njdams.org. Michelle, maybe you can put that in the chat. And recordings of the previous 6 presentations can be found there, as well as many resources on the basics of dam removal, funding resources, permitting, and monitoring. This webinar will be found probably in the next week or so in that same spot under the resources tabs on njdams.org if you'd like to share it. Our meeting goals today include understanding the importance of focusing on recreational elements. We're looking at 3 projects today. 2 are complete, 1 is proposed. Understanding who to engage and when. And hopefully at the end of our presentation, some conversation about this topic. Our registrants today come from New Jersey, of course, but also Pennsylvania, Vermont, Arkansas, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. So a pretty diverse group of folks with, I am sure, some interest in recreational uses post-dam removal, and hopefully some information that they can share as well. So for most of us, or for many of us on this call, our decisions to support or participate in dam removal is usually centered on ecosystem improvement. And to be honest, that's where most of the entities that fund dam removal are interested in funding. There are, of course, a lot of other reasons to remove dams: removing failing infrastructure, public safety issues, building resiliency for climate change, or reducing local flooding. The most exciting projects are those that include 2 or more of those pieces. But whatever the main driver or drivers are, there's very often opportunity to improve recreational opportunities as part of dam removal project. In New Jersey, for example, former mill sites come into public ownership pretty often via open space acquisitions. So not only is there a chance that people might come across a dam while recreating, they're often invited out to the site. With that in mind, I'm going to stop sharing and give our first speaker the opportunity to present. Our first speaker is Annie Polkowski. She's the Watershed Program Coordinator for the Musconetcong Watershed Association. She'll be presenting on the Finesville Dam removal on the Musconetcong River.
Thanks, Beth. Just give me 1 second here. Okay. All right. Can you all see my screen here? I want to make sure I've got the right one up.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. So hello, my name is Annie Polkowski. I am the Watershed Programs Coordinator for the Musconetcong Watershed Association. I just began my time here about 2 months ago, so I'm hoping I get all the details of this project right. But you know, if I miss something, Beth, please feel free to jump in or add something in the chat box. So I wanted to discuss the impact of dams on river recreation and public safety, and how we can draw on river recreation as a tool for gaining support from the public for buy-in. So many of our river resources in this region of New Jersey have dams located on them, and we annually attract numerous paddlers and fishermen, both from within the watershed boundaries and beyond. So, it's a really key group of people here to help get that public buy-in for these dam removal projects. So a little bit about us. The Musconetcong Watershed Association was formed in 1992 with a mission to protect and improve the water quality of the Musconetcong River watershed. 1 second here, I'm just adjusting my screen a little bit so I can see myself. All right, so like I said, the Musconetcong River Watershed Association's mission is to protect the Musconetcong River watershed, including its natural and cultural resources through public education, river monitoring, promotion of sustainable land use practices, and community involvement. The Musconetcong watershed is approximately 158 square miles, forming at Lake Hopatcong, flowing about 42 miles southwest to its confluence at the Delaware River near Riegelsville. Along the way, water is impounded by over 30 dams or dam remnants, while some impoundments on the upper watershed provide significant—
The 6th of October is fine.
Significant recreational opportunities, such as on Lake Hopatcong itself. Many of the low-head dams on the main stem and its tributaries, which are relics of the river's industrial history, provide no functional benefit and in fact are a significant issue to public safety. In 2006, 24.2 miles of the Musconetcong River were designated as a national wild and scenic river. The section from Kings Highway Bridge in Beattystown to the railroad tunnels of the Musconetcong Gorge are designated because of its recreational value. While the National Wild and Scenic Act is intended to protect only free-flowing rivers, sections of the Musconetcong River where dams were significantly altered the habitat and hydrology of the river were excluded from this designation. However, the remaining dams that were not found to substantially influence the riverine character afforded sections of the Muskie to be designated under this act. The management plan specifically identifies removal of non-functional dams under its goals and objective to promote the recreational use of the river. So since then, MWA has been involved in dam removals along the Muskie, resulting in removal of 5 low-head dams with the help of our many partners. 3 of these dam removals occurred in the lower watershed, including Riegelsville, Finesville, and Hughesville, restoring the free-flowing condition of 5 miles of river, providing connectivity to the Delaware River. This also opened up aquatic organism passage to shad and other anadromous fish that hadn't been present in the river for over 200 years. The next upstream dam is the Warren Dam, which is the largest on the river and by far the most costly and complex removal project. A feasibility study is currently underway for the removal of this dam, but we hope to be able to remove this dam in the future. The Bloomsbury Dam is just upstream and is also slated to be removed by the Army Corps of Engineers, hopefully in the near future. So removal of these 2 additional dams would then restore approximately 13 miles of connectivity to the Delaware River. So additionally, 2 dams removals were conducted in Hackettstown, one of the watershed's more urbanized communities. This will include removal of the East Avenue Dam remnant, which is slated for next summer. So how do dam removals support river recreation? The first and primary reason is to improve the public safety for those who visit it. Most in this group are probably aware of the drowning dangers presented by low-head dams. However, as more and more people are attracted to the river for these recreational activities, it is important to educate them on the hazards surrounding these structures. The river is an important source of recreation for boating, primarily canoes and kayaks, and has been identified by the New Jersey DEP Office of Natural Lands Management in its New Jersey Trails Plan as a waterways trail. The most frequently canoed sections of the river are between Bloomsbury and Beattystown, which is approximately 17 miles, where paddlers will encounter several dams and dam remnants that require portage around these structures. They also are not always immediately obvious to paddlers, especially in high flow. And unfortunately, on the Muskie, there have been several incidences of drowning associated with the dams due to lack of awareness around these structures. The MWA published and has available on its website a Musconetcong Water Trail Guide that identifies these points along the river and provides descriptions of how and where to portage these structures. So an important part of our mission at MWA is providing that public education piece and get more people out on the river. However, we do need to identify these risks when we are encouraging people to go out and recreate on our river. So the Muskie also attracts a number of anglers and fishermen to its waters. The Musconetcong is one of the most popular fishing streams in New Jersey and the surrounding region, and has more miles of stocked waters than any other stream statewide. The Muskie is designated as a Category 1 water by NJDEP and supports a population of native brook trout as well as reproducing populations of brown trout. So the Musconetcong River's popularity is growing with the increase in public fishing access sites maintained by NJDEP and the New Jersey Division of Fish and Wildlife, which provide almost 24 access points along the river. Many additional access points are provided by municipalities and private citizens and can be found on the Great Waters website, which is linked to the MWA homepage. Many fishermen understand the benefits of removal on dam removal on local fish populations. Unfortunately, there are still some fishermen that have the perception that dams provide good fishing spots and can be resistant to dam removal. They see large trout hanging out immediately downstream of the dam in the well-oxygenated waters and concerned that the removal of these dams will reduce the overall oxygen availability in the stream. Here, I think education is really key, talking to fishermen about how dam removals can support the ecology and life cycle of trout is instrumental in gaining that public buy-in. I think talking about the removal and restoration, providing more beneficial habitat along longer stretches of stream, including riffles, crossveins, and boulders, is an important piece in talking about the river restoration process and gaining that public buy-in. I think it's also really important to make sure that when we are planning a dam removal project, that we make sure to include these types of habitat structures in the post-dam removal restoration, just to make sure that we are gaining the public buy-in of the anglers in our community. So while many of the dam removals on the Muskie have helped improve the recreational quality of the river, the story of the Finesville Dam is really directly tied to the need for improved public safety due to its tragic history. So this 9-foot high, 109-foot long dam through historic Finesville is located approximately 2 miles upstream of the Delaware River confluence. It historically supplied hydroelectric power for a number of industrial uses beginning in 1751. The 1950 dam was reconstructed out of concrete to power a paper mill. However, by 1990, the dam was no longer being used for any industrial purpose. MWA worked for 4 years to gain funding and public support for the removal of the Finesville Dam. The dam owner was concerned about the liability and initiated the project. It had support of many upstream landowners due to some of the issues that they were experiencing due to flooding. However, despite the general public support for removal of this dam, there was some pushback from some of the surrounding property owners, especially those interested in preserving the historic nature of the site. Beth mentioned to me in our tour the other day that it was particularly challenging that the the owner of the mill, the resident of the mill at the time, was a local historian. So gaining that that support was key in the removal of this dam and success of the project. So the tragic events that occurred along the Finesville Dam included multiple deaths due to drowning at the dam and one near fatality in 2011. This really put into gears the motion to remove this obstruction and public safety hazard. So these are just a couple of headlines associated with these tragedies. This included a death in 1989 of a 29-year-old man during a kayaking accident, drowning of a high school guidance counselor in 2000, and also the near drowning of a 16-year-old boy that fell into the Muskie near Finesville while he was fishing in 2011. Thankfully, that last story, was not a fatality, but those types of events occurring over and over again really was the impetus for removing this dam. And I think it's important to remember that while there are always risks associated with river recreation, low-head dams have been called drowning machines due to the presence of the underwater hydraulic jump that makes it extremely difficult to escape even with a personal flotation device. So dam removal is really the only solution for protecting the public from these known hazards. And the near drowning of the 16-year-old boy is what finally got all parties on board for removal of this dangerous dam. The dam removal occurred in 2011 and was led by a number of partners, including the MWA. I took these pictures just recently after Hurricane Ida, and I was very impressed with the condition of the site, given some of the storm damage that we've seen in the area. Really, there was only one tree that was down from the site, but the banks looked to be in very good condition. One thing I mentioned earlier about the importance of the local history there, something that included in the design to really gain the support of those that might have not been in favor of the project, was keeping a small portion of the dam remnant on, you can see it in the right-hand picture. That including that small piece of the dam and documenting the archaeological artifacts there helped to gain that buy-in. And in reality, keeping that very small section of the dam did not influence the overall successful restoration of the project. So I think that was a really good call there. So in conclusion, while river recreation is vital to gaining support for protection of the Musconetcong and other rivers and water resources, it also serves as an impetus for improving its public safety. So along with dam removal, public education and signage can help reduce issues with public safety. And I think this is really important, especially now after the pandemic, where more and more people are coming out to our river to recreate, especially novices who might not be as familiar with the dangers of dams. I think it is really important to educate the public on these issues. I also think, where dam removal isn't immediately possible, I think it is very important that we consider having visible signage along these dams, especially because of the difficulty in identifying these on the stream under all flow conditions. So anyway, hopefully I have a few minutes for questions, or Beth, are we taking questions at the end?
I think we are going to group all the questions at the end. If folks think of one, you can put it into the chat, and that'll get us going at the end. But for now, I think we're going to just transition. I have asked Bob Rankin, he's with the Hackensack River Canoe and Kayak Club, to just give us a few minutes, just a kind of a paddler's eye view of dams. And Bob, if you want to unmute yourself and just give us a few words about a paddler's concerns on dams.
Okay, thank you. I'm Bob Rankin, and I've been paddling for 40 some years, and mostly small streams. I live in the northeast corner of New Jersey, and consequently I go to northwestern Connecticut, southern New York, and western Jersey, and I paddle mostly small rivers like this, and there's many, many dams. One of my experiences was at Finesville many years ago. The first time we were there, we had scouted the river by car and saw the dam. And it was me and another fellow in a tandem canoe. And we got down there. It wasn't very high water, so it wasn't a question of being worried about being swept over. But when we got there, we saw the Hunterdon County side. It was an easy place to take out. But when we walked up to the road bridge, the other side of the river, the downstream side, was the old paper mill that was completely abandoned and fenced off. So we couldn't get back in. So finally, we went over to the Warren County side. On the Warren County side, the old mill site and the old Revolutionary era homes seemed to be all fenced off. So eventually what we did, we kind of got to the edge of the dam very slowly. And well, like I said, the current wasn't very strong that day. And we were able to get out, and I climbed down the 9-foot drop, and my friend lowered the boat with a rope to me, and that's how we got back. So a lot of times the dam presents the problem of how do you get around it? You know, it becomes evident that it's there, you know what you have to do, but sometimes it's not that easy. But anyway, I wanted to just mention with new paddlers, because I lead a lot of trips for my club, and a lot of times paddlers nowadays, especially the novices, they've bought the kayak, they've bought the canoe, they've done a lot of reservoir and lake paddling. And the question is, they're used to that kind of non-moving water. So we get them out there, and we try to show them how to size up what a moving river does, and especially how to size up what's coming with a dam. Because most places there aren't signs. And sometimes where there is an old sign, there's really nothing maintaining it. Like there's one on the Ramapo that's a sign, but it's so far upstream, and it's, you know, just a privately owned thing. And year by year, I'm figuring it's not going to be there next year. But anyway, I always mention to the people as we're paddling along that, look, you notice how the river, the current has slowed down and the river's gotten wider. So you're in the pond created by that dam. The other thing, one of the giveaways is oftentimes there's a road, a bridge further downstream. The Tohickon Creek, the upper Tohickon Creek in Ralph Stover State Park in Pennsylvania is a good example. And it looks like they built the bridge. If you're looking from your boat, you look downstream, it looks like the bridge is sitting on the water's surface. So I always say to people, what's wrong with the picture? Because nobody's going to build a bridge right there. Obviously, there's got to be a 6, 8, 10-foot drop between you and the bridge. So we try to tell them that, you know, you're in the woods, you're moving at nature's pace, and you got to be tuned into that, where all of a sudden your river widens out, your current slows, and unless there's real high water, there's plenty of time to exit. It's a question of thinking it through. And I see during the pandemic last year, especially on the South Branch of the Raritan, so many people, when the weather got warm, they took out everything that's floated, pool floats, tire tubes, all kinds of stuff. And there was just, you know, tons of kids just jumping in that river and going. And the thing is, you know, there's no real awareness of what moving water does. But anyway, that's it.
Thank you very much, Bob. I have had the opportunity to speak with folks at Hackensack and Mohawk and other paddling clubs, and just as Bob expressed, you hear it over and over again that, you know, dams, I don't know what it's like in other states. I can say in New Jersey are very rarely, if ever, signposted. And there's no way that a novice paddler is going to know that dam is coming up. And I mean, Bob gave us a very good example of what happens when folks come up to a dam. And that was, you know, two very experienced paddlers in normal flows. That could have a very different outcome had it been two novice paddlers or a solo paddler coming upon a dam without a safe portage. So thanks very much. I'm going to ask Bill to share your screen. I'll mention as he's getting ready to share that when dam removals have a recreational component, which again is just about every dam removal.
Okay.
The project.
Thank you so much.
Just a reminder for everyone, can mute your phones or your laptops. Thanks. Michelle, maybe you can jump in. Anyway, the time to think about that recreational component is at the very early stages of design and community outreach. Find out what makes sense for fishing, boating, hunting, and birding access by speaking to anglers, paddlers, hunters, and birders. Don't guess. You don't want to put your parking lot on a favorite duck hunting cove or create banks that are hard to get in and out of. Fishing will change for sure. Doesn't mean fishing goes away, but it'll likely require a change in tackle. Have these conversations early. They can be very challenging. Try and bring local trusted recreational users to help you get your message out. And again, start early. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill Kibler, Director of Policy at Raritan Headwaters Association. He's going to talk about the Darts Mill Dam on the south branch of the Raritan River.
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate the intro. Good to see everybody this afternoon. Great turnout. We're going to talk about Darts Mill Dam today, which I really enjoyed hearing from the previous speakers, because I think a number of the things that they mentioned are definitely true at this site. So we can talk about a few of those as I go through. I've just got a couple of pictures to show you all. The Darts Mill Dam is an old mill dam, not surprising, on the south branch of the Raritan River, just downstream of Flemington. It's on this map. And if you can see my cursor, the dam itself is right here. So you can see the south branch flows to the south in this picture. It starts in the upper left-hand corner of the photo, flows down to the lower center. And the river, just because of the geology, makes a hard 90-degree turn right where this dam is located. You'll see in a photo in a minute, this is a remnant dam. The full dam is no longer in place. There's just the remnants of the dam there. And for that reason, from a safety perspective, this can be a very difficult dam to navigate, because especially for paddlers who don't know this water, they may not know it's there. If you're familiar with this area at all, or if you're a baseball or softball player, this is Diamond Nation over here, and the former Lipton Tea Plant here. Reddington Township to the east and Raritan Township to the west. Unless you were out of the country or sleeping during the remnants of Hurricane Ida, you probably don't need a reminder that water is a very powerful source, a significant source of power. It provides great opportunities for recreation, but it also provides some very significant risks. Downstream of this location is the Rockefeller Mills Dam on the South Branch. In 1975, 2 kids were killed there drowning in recreation. Unless you think this is just an historical thing, I happen to be on the fire company in Califon, and during Ida, we had to rescue 2 juveniles from the remnants of the Weiss's Pond Dam. So if I got any My Cousin Vinny fans, that's the 2 Utes. We were incredibly fortunate that those kids decided that it'd be a lot of fun to go out boogie boarding on the South Branch in the middle of the storm. And the river was pretty angry and did not want them there. We were fortunate that we got both of the kids safely to shore, because that could very easily have gone the other way. We could have been doing a recovery, which would have been bad news for everybody. So this project itself, the Darts Mill Dam, There we go. Okay, so this is a close-up of the dam. You can see the remnants of the dam here. To the right of the picture is the remaining foundation of the original mill. This was a pretty large mill at one point. This was the miller's house. These two buildings over here were housing for the mill workers. This is the South Branch flows here from left to right and then down. And you can see this is that 90-degree turn that the river makes here with the remnant dam in place here. This can be a popular place for people to put in. Up where I showed you where the old Lipton tea plant is also a popular place for people to put in. From the ground level, this is what the remnant dam looks like. This is at fairly normal flows. This is not in a flooding condition at all. This is just fairly normal flows. And you can see pretty clearly in this picture, at least, the remaining part of the structure that's underwater, that's below normal water level, and then pieces of the dam on both sides of this part of the river. In normal flows like this, people that are familiar with the water can see where the remnant dam is, and they can carry around it or deal with it however their skill set allows them. In high water, it can be virtually impossible to tell that the structure is here, and it is still very much there. And as Annie mentioned, these low head dams create a real significant drowning hazard, because if you're not aware that that structure is there, or if you don't have the skill level to get over it safely, and you roll, you either turn your canoe or kayak or whatever it is you're floating on over, you can easily get pinned up against that dam, and that's how people have gotten drowned in the past. This is a project for us that is, it's not even on the drawing board yet. This is very definitely a very provisional project. But our goal here is to help address recreational uses and help address public safety. The ideal solution here would be to remove this remnant dam, which would make this stretch of the South Branch easier to get through if you're paddling, whether you're in a canoe or a kayak or upright paddleboard or anything else that'll float, as you said earlier. It's also, Raritan Headwaters is a watershed association, and addressing this as a recreational concern is important. But it's also very important as a water quality issue. This section of the South Branch here, you're down in the Piedmont. In the highlands, the upstream portion of the South Branch, the streams are much higher gradient. You've got faster flows. Down here in the Piedmont, these are relatively low gradient streams. So this dam right here, well, it may not be obvious from this photo, this dam right here backs water all the way up to about here. It creates a big stillwater pond. If you ever go by the old Lipton plant, you'll see what I'm talking about. And that creates water quality issues for us, because that still water warms up during the summer, creating, we wind up having high temperatures, low dissolved oxygen, and we wind up having bacteria issues. So the bacteria issues are also a public health concern, obviously. So this would be an opportunity. This project has the potential to address recreational access, recreational safety, public safety, as well as water quality. And we kind of hope to do all of those things. If you're working on a project like this, it helps to have good partners. I got to give a shout out to my friends at Reddington Township. If you're looking for an ideal municipal partner, Reddington Township is very good. And we're working with them on the preliminary stages of this project. And with that, Beth, I guess we'll wait and take questions at the end, but if folks have, in the meantime, if folks have questions, comments, observations, whatever, feel free to put them in the comment box.
Okay. Thanks very much, Bill. So the township is the owner of that dam?
No, this is a privately owned dam. This is my contact information if anybody wants it, if you want to email me directly or give me a call. The dam itself presently is privately owned. It's owned by the person that owns the remaining structures there at the dam, the miller's house and the other housing there. So at least for right now, it is a privately owned structure. And what we've got there is Reddington on one side and Raritan on the other. So we're gonna need to do some outreach with Raritan Township and get them on board also.
Okay. So you can get ready, Bill, if you want to stop sharing, and Evan can get ready to share. Just wanted to mention a couple things that I thought of. Annie showed us a very cool, interactive online map, river trail map. So not all recreation maps and trails have to be that fancy. So it's very cool if you can have that. But when you create a new trail, whether it's a waterway trail, hiking trail, whatever, you can just do something as simple as a PDF and reach out to organizations or townships and have them, post that new trail, updated trail or waterway trail on their website. But it's always good to let folks know when you've updated structures in the river and how that might interface with recreation. Okay, so to introduce Evan, first I'll say that often when a dam is removed, the grade control or creation of fish habitat or fish passage structures are built into the restored stream, and Evan will show us how to think about how those structures can be integrated into future recreational use. So I'm going to introduce Evan Madlinger. He's the Acting State Resource Conservationist for NRCS, and he's going to talk about the Burnt Mills Dam removal on the Lamington River. Take it away.
Thanks, Beth. Can you see my screen okay? The map's up?
Yep, everything's good.
Excellent. So, yeah, as Beth said, my name is Evan Madlinger, and I'm currently the Acting State Resource Conservationist for NRCS. And if you're not familiar, NRCS is part of USDA, and our primary goal is working voluntarily with private landowners to do good environmental stuff. And a lot of times that's, agriculture related, good farming practices, waterways and diversions and manure management type stuff. But in New Jersey too, and everywhere else, we do a lot of other things too, forestry, wetland restoration, and dam removal is something that we've been involved with for quite a while. We helped fund Annie's, when she was talking about Finesville, that was a project we helped fund, as well as a couple of the Hackettstown dams. And we've been pretty involved over the last, 15, 20 years in the dam removal activities in New Jersey, which I'm really happy about. I think that's a great use of Farm Bill dollars to really improve the habitat in these rivers for all sorts of uses. So the dam I'm talking about today is the Burnt Mills Dam. So this is located in Somerset County. It's on the Lamington River, as Beth said. It's actually owned by Bill's group. There's a preserve there that Raritan Headwaters maintains. So Bill was a great landowner and partner on this project, and an equal partner to me. NRCS funded this through a couple of our programs, but this definitely couldn't happen without assistance from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We often partner with them, and Beth Friday, I believe, is on the call here too. She was instrumental in helping get this project going as well. So it was a few different agencies here. And why I wanted to talk about this one, there's a lot of neat things going on. So first off is this is a remnant. So I know Bill was just talking about a remnant dam too. I think sometimes these remnant dams, we kind of overlook them because they're not full blockages, but this particular dam was posing a lot of problems for this area. So we have, just to get you kind of centered here, this is kind of behind Raritan Valley Community College, for those that you may know that area. We've got Bedminster Township to the north here. We've got Branchburg Township to the south. Hopefully you can pretty clearly see here this remnant dam. We also have a bridge, and then it's only about a quarter mile or so. The Lamington confluence with the North Branch is downstream here. So this is, we got a lot going on here. This is an area that tends to get flooded really bad at times. Some of that related to the bridge. Also, if it's backing back up from the North Branch. Also, what you see here is, this channel here to the north really did not exist back when you look through historic photos. Say, I think it was in 1950. I know we did all this research, and I've got so many projects, I forget now all the little fine details, but essentially, this dam blew out what we could tell was a big storm in the 50s. And, historically, the flow went across here, this lower section. But at this point, in the time of this photo, you had about probably 70% of the flow kind of going around. Recreationally, very important area locally. I grew up in the area. This was the place that I learned to fish. I used to put tubes in and float down the river. A lot of use recreationally here from people, like I said, paddling to fishing. This is kind of a warm water stretch of river, so probably back in the day there were more cold water species here, but this river does warm up quite a bit in the summer. But it is a very important locally stocked trout location and gets a lot of fishing activity in the spring. In addition, if you kind of look off the end of the dam here, you can even see in a photo, this was a really big pool right here. A lot of people would come in the summer and swim and hang out here. So you had that aspect of it as well. And then from a habitat standpoint, again, fish passage is here, but it is still causing some problems. So we'll talk about what we did here. Let's just see if I can. Oh, I'm more of a Teams guy here. There we go. Good. Wasn't switching here for a second. So this is just a picture here. Kind of, I'm looking upstream. And what I wanted to kind of show here is this kind of deep pool, and I'm talking like a 12 or 15 foot deep pool had been scoured out here by the river getting forced around the end of the dam. And just in the, I don't know, 30 years probably I've been paying attention as a kid to, and now as a professional, this erosion that you're seeing here was getting worse and worse and worse. It was really pushing up all around it, and then you can see it around the back here too. So that was a real problem, and something that you'll notice some real nice big trees on the bank there that were kind of in jeopardy of falling apart. And then you can see here in this photo behind the dam, you had all this accumulation of sediment. You can see it here, and it's hard to get a good picture of this, with the water, but you have to take my word for it that this was all just kind of hot and very sediment laden all through here. And this really was where the original channel historically had been. So this was definitely something that was a bit of a water quality problem and really not doing much for us from a habitat standpoint. As someone that would fish this area, there really wasn't anything going on fish-wise here in this back area behind the pool. So this was the plan that we went with, and you can see here on the bottom the logo U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We worked with their fish passage engineer on this design. That was one of the great things that they were able to help us with. And what you see here was we proposed to remove the dam. We actually built a channel block here that would only overtop at high flows. And got the river flowing back the way that it should be. We also shaved off a little bit of this island, put it up front here to get the channel width that we needed to match above and below there. And then we did have a couple, it's a little hard to tell in this picture, but we do have a couple deflectors, or three actually, that kind of went around this bend so that when this did overtop, it would push it off, the erosion, or keep the erosion off the bank. And the other thing, so we were talking about recreation and fishing. So a couple of factors that we were thinking about here. We knew that this pool was locally important. A lot of people would come here and swim in this pool, and we were going to be taking that away, right? And in addition to that, we were losing the fish. A lot of people would fish this pool too, and that was also going to be gone. So we thought about that as well. And so we did build this into the design, and I wanted to keep the slides down because I know we had a lot of people presenting today. So I do have some others where it would show we actually proposed a couple of pools there to account for this, and I'll show you this here in the next picture. So again, this is, I picked some pictures here that were just after this was done. So we took this dam out in October of 2019, so relatively new project. And again, these are pretty much right after the removal within a couple weeks here. The water is up a little high, just so you guys know. This was during the time period when they were doing a lot of lowering of Round Valley Reservoir. So the flows were a little bit higher than typical. So we wouldn't typically see this channel block flowing like it does now. But it kind of gives you an idea. And this may look like from the surface here, just a few boulders on the top, but really this goes down about, I think it was 3 or 4 feet down with some boulders. We really had to make sure that this was stable and going to hold. But what I wanted to show you here is, from a fishing standpoint, what we did was the contractor that removed this is also, they're experts at fish habitat improvement projects. We do a lot of stream habitat improvement work with them anyway. So in this particular case, we actually enhanced this pool right here. So this is a nice pool, maybe 4 or 5 feet deep here at the deepest, and this created a real nice area for fishing and recreating. And then again, down below, we built up this nice riffle because we had to account for the grade change for when that dam came out. So now we have this real nice riffle here, and then that goes down into another big deep pool, real nice access here. You can kind of see this is like, we didn't even really do this. This was just naturally here, but we worked with it, and it becomes a nice beach here where it's easy to kind of put in boats, or you can come down here and fish. And, you know, we see this all the time when you drive by, that there'll be people kind of hanging out here on this area, taking advantage of these pools. So, again, this is kind of this view, and I'll give you one more. This really kind of shows you the riffles. And what was exciting here, and I know, you know, Bill and I talked a lot about this when the project was done, you could hear the river here. I mean, there was not much sound, you know, even with that remnant dam. But when we did this habitat improvement here and we got this riffle in, you can see how much more alive the water is. Again, I understand this is a little higher flow than what you typically get, but it definitely gives you a good picture. And there's that, you know, fish habitat, you'll get trout hanging out here right on the downside here of this riffle. Again, real nice big pool for fishing access, good access for boating. So definitely something that we considered here. Very well received by the neighbors. You know, we talked a little bit about public support, whatever. The public here was phenomenal. That we did great outreach, and I say we, really Bill spearheaded that. Really got talking to the neighbors, got them on board. They were having a lot of flooding issues in this area. We couldn't promise them that it would be totally fixed because the bridge and the confluence also played a part in the flooding, but it definitely didn't hurt, and it did help. I'm curious to hear now how they made out after Ida, but yeah, so it's been really good, really well received, very well liked, and it really, I think the result ended up being a very pretty result that also factored in a lot better recreational opportunities too. So I think that's all I had, Beth. So I know we're gonna hang on questions till the end, so I will pass it back to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Evan. And thanks to all the presenters. A lot of, you know, there's definitely that theme there, but we got to see it from, you know, a couple of different approaches there with a couple of different, you know, projects that may enhance boating versus fishing or fishing versus boating. But do we have, I think the easiest way to do it with this number of people on the call is to go ahead and just throw an R in the chat and unmute yourself. And we'll be able to take questions that way. I'll give folks a chance. If you want, you can just put the question in chat and we can read that out. Michelle, are there any there now? Okay, I have one to start us off. And I know we have a whole bunch of different disciplines on the call, and that will be helpful. I know we have somebody from American Rivers who could be helpful perhaps, but one thing I can never find when I look for it is when a dam removal is in the design phase, is there a resource for designing a riffle or a rock vein or rock weirs for paddlers? Does anybody know the answer to that question? If not, I'm going to have to keep my research going and answer. But whether you're, you know, again, whether you're a designer or a contractor or a paddler, is there a resource out there that folks can use to make sure that in typical flows, people are going to safely be able to get a boat through a constructed riffle? I guess I'm not the only one who wonders this.
Beth, that is a great question. And no, you're not the only one answering that. So I would love it if somebody has an answer, since that's something we may be dealing with in the future.
That's a good question too, Beth. I think, and I know it's something that we think a lot about on our stream restoration stuff, and we kind of do it innately as we're looking at it. But I have to go check. There may be some, you know, I'll have to check with my engineer. We may have some references on something like that. I can take a look and see if we have anything that may be useful in that regard for sure.
Okay. And I'll get back to folks with that answer should it surface. Okay, so I'm going to answer. There's a quick question in here. What is the impact downstream? I'm assuming, does the dam removal itself more flow, flooding? You know, is there more downstream flooding? And I can give, you know, kind of the layperson's short answer to that, which is if we create flooding, if we exacerbate flooding, if we, you know, worsen flooding in any way downstream, we're pretty much not going to be able to take a dam out. It's part of, in New Jersey anyway, it is part of the process of getting a dam removal permitted. You definitely have to show the effect downstream for flooding. You put in weirs or other way. Yes. Okay. So again, now if somebody wants to answer these in a more technical way, by all means, just, you know, volunteer your answer or unmute yourself. I think we won't have a flood of folks unmuting themselves. Talking about putting in structure to lessen velocity. So yes, that happens, and that helps with fish passage, right? We can't have fish swimming upstream through a fire hose kind of a chute there. So yes, and there are other things that help protect banks or other infrastructure against that increase in velocity. Does the DEP, okay, we have DEP folks on here, recognize the term remnant dam? I'm concerned about taking out a dam and leaving a quote remnant. Could it be done to limit the liability to the owner? So I'll wait to see if any DEP folks pop in. I know that Annie mentioned leaving the remnant. That the length of dam left in the case of Finesville and Hughesville and some other removals and Columbia is okayed by NJDEP. So dam safety, when they look at your design, they will see that you're planning to leave a remnant there. And it is very often for historic interpretation so that folks coming on the site can see where the dam was, the size and location. Anybody on here from dam safety want to answer whether or not remnant dam is something that, okay, the questions are coming fast and furious now. Do dam removal?
I was just going to add, we had one project in the upper end of our watershed, the old YMCA camp dam up in Mount Olive, where the dam was notched. They cut a big chunk of the dam out to lower water levels, and a portion of the dam was left in place, not so much for historic purposes, but because there's a genetically unique strain of native brook trout upstream of that dam, and we didn't want the stock trout getting in there and mixing with them. So in that case, the remnant dam, if you want to call that, was intentionally left in place. So there may be some legitimate reasons for leaving part of the dam in place, as you mentioned, the historical reasons, but there may be some others as well.
Okay. Again, I'll invite folks to, you know, you can put an R in a chat. We'll ask you to unmute yourself if you have these answers. Do dam removals help with stormwater management upstream? Upstream, I'll give you, again, a lay person's answer. So please, you non-lay people, please jump in and feel comfortable in answering. What a dam removal often does is increase the floodplain area and reconnection to floodplain. So where you might have had a dam pool that was 300 feet across and 1,000 feet long, when the river shrinks back to its natural length, you now have floodplain to help absorb and or slow down the flow. So you could be helping absorb that stormwater. As a whitewater paddler, I'd say as long as there's passage at normal levels and safe portage. Okay, you don't have to engineer for paddlers. Okay, so I get it. We don't want to make it too easy because that removes the fun, but we also don't want to make it impossible during normal flows. Clarify, leaving any remnant structures, it is important to remove all of the vertical, even below the water line, and at least enough for some amounts of normal flow. Otherwise, the remaining sill of the dam will create a barrier. Again, in New Jersey, where we have great partners in the DEP, in dam safety and in land use. They help us to make sure that our designs don't create these additional hazards, don't leave what is essentially a dam. Am I missing any R's or anybody offering? Did I miss any questions?
This is Chris Adams, if you could hear me. As an engineer who's been involved with dams and removals for like 40 years, the issue with this remnant, New Jersey defines dams as a structure that raises the water level 5 feet. So if you leave a remnant, but it's still resulting in raising the water level 5 feet, then it's still going to be classified as a dam. So that's why I don't think there's such a term as remnant in the dam safety regulations, because it comes down to the hydraulic modeling, with and without that structure.
Okay, and I think we're talking about something that just extends from the bank. In general, it's might be 10, 12 feet from the bank, but as Amy Stigler.
What I meant though is if that's restricting the flow enough to still have an increase in the water level, it could still fall under a dam category. That's what I meant. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Chris. Understood. And I can tell you that funders who are funding open rivers are also not going to fund something that doesn't fully open a river. So, I think we're all kind of on the same side there. And what I was saying is Amy did mention that we do need to remove, we don't remove it down and leave a sill in the river, but we go down, again, depending on the design and the permitting, quite a bit below the dam. Okay, trying to read as fast as I can here. Has anyone here been involved in a removal project coordinated a direct improvement for recreational purposes, such as the installation of, very good question. So the creation of whitewater park features, we see those, I'd almost call them extreme recreational projects. Colorado, Nevada, Idaho, Missouri, all have examples of those. If you go online, you'll see examples of those. I will say, I feel very comfortable saying this on the behalf of the Nature Conservancy and probably many other organizations here, but I will speak for the Nature Conservancy in saying that we would not prioritize structure for increasing enjoyment of recreation, right? We're going to prioritize the ecosystem in the river. So we're never going to look at a stretch of river and say, how fun can we make this? We're going to look at it and say, how can we improve the health of the river, fish habitat, etc., and also make sure that paddling and angling remains safe and fun. So I do see some of those rivers and they wind up being, I call it like the Disneyfication of rivers, right? I don't know that I could get behind some of those projects, but I hope that was a good answer. If you Google them, you'll find exactly what I mean by just Googling, dam removal and water park together, and you'll see them come up. Did I miss any questions? Jeff Gall, I see you have your hand up.
Thanks, Beth. Yeah, just there's a couple of experiences with the whitewater recreational component. Number one, I think that would probably be a permitting issue, at least in New Jersey, specific to land use as well as fish and wildlife approval. I think if if it was like all of a sudden created as a byproduct of it, and that wasn't the actual objective, so I don't think you'd get that. But we also did a project in Connecticut a few years ago. It was a whitewater river on the Farmington River, and there was a large dam remnant that actually was there, but it was, as Chris was saying, it was still restricting the flow. It was still regulated, but it was also a drowning hazard. And then so what they did is they actually removed the dam, and by not doing anything, there was some ledge underneath it, and it had just provided some automatic improvements to the river. But it wasn't really the targeted design, but it was one of the key elements of getting someone to buy in.
Good.
Thank you. I'm going to read another question and also let you folks know if you want to stay on a couple extra minutes, I'm fine for staying on. I missed this one. In situations where there is significant physical attachment.
No. I was listening to a webinar.
Yeah. How do agencies and advocacy groups in New Jersey approach cultivating support for removal? So I will say that number one, if we are removing a dam, it's because the owner wants the dam out. So your number one are, it's either a piece of personal property or municipal property, and they want the dam out. So it's not as if TNC or NRCS are going in and saying, hey, we're going to take your dam out, hope you're on board. So number one, we're working with the landowner on the project, or the dam owner, I should say, on the project. And then it can be a lot of hard work. I won't make light of it. Sometimes folks, it's 50-50, and sometimes it is a slog to get through, changing hearts and minds. And there's only one way to do it. You got to get out there. You have to talk to people. You have to have the hard conversations. In the end, Finesville is a good example. The owner absolutely wanted it out. I think he was quoted as saying, I don't want to pull another dead body out of the river. And the other folks, they wanted the dam there. And it was a couple of years of hard work to bring those folks around. There's actually a YouTube, you can find it on YouTube, a video, just put in U.S. Fish and Wildlife and the word Finesville, and you'll see how those owners came around, the upstream owners who were dead set against dam removal, appear in this video happy with the results. And that was simply, shoe leather, knocking on doors, sitting on front porches. Again, did they have to be consulted? No, because the guy who owned the dam wanted it out. But we all want projects that make as many people happy, satisfied, and, we want to be proud of these projects when we look back. So, I wish there was a short answer to that question, but it's really just a lot of outreach, and one-on-one can be better. Bring along local folks, right? So if you have people who, are fighting because you're taking away their fishing resource, talk to the local Trout Unlimited chapter, get them out and have them do the outreach, right? We're always going to be other in a lot of these circumstances. If it's the historic folks who are anti-dam removal, see if there's a historian who can help to explain how there will be signage, there will be, that piece of the dam left as interpretation. There'll be, an archaeologist on site who will document the dam, so again, try to go local to local, and you're gonna wear out at least a pair of shoes if you do it right. I see more messages.
And Beth, if I could just throw something in there real quick.
Please do.
The engineering side of dam removal and stream restoration is kind of the piece that everybody sees. The design, the planning, the implementation of the dam removal and stream restoration is obviously a critical part of what you're doing. But you really need to think of the public outreach as being an equal partner in that process. And if you're not spending as much or more time on public outreach as you are designing the project, you may be making your life more difficult than you need to. And I'll just put in a plug. We recently did one of these webinars on public outreach. So feel free to go back to the New Jersey Dams website and have a look at that webinar.
Thanks, Bill. Yes, what you reminded me to say that we have a whole webinar on community outreach that Bill and folks from the MustConnectCon worked on. And if you head over to njdams.org, you'll find all of those webinars up under the resources tab. Any other questions? Again, happy to stay a little bit. I see we have about 80% of the folks still on here. Has a team in New Jersey video documented a removal? So yes, in a bunch of bits and pieces. And for the Columbia Dam, I can tell you that the entire dam removal and fish passage construction is all on a time lapse that is kind of fabulous. So if you want to reach out to me, I will. Michelle, do you know if that's in the case studies? There's also case studies on njdams.org. The time-lapse video might be.
I don't believe it's on there. We could potentially put it on there. If not, Steve, if you want to shoot Beth or I an email, we can share it with you.
Okay, would you suggest meeting with a large group first or set up individual meeting up and downstream landowners? I personally like to do one-on-one to the greatest degree possible. And I'll tell you why. When you meet somebody, you knock on their door, you have a conversation, a cup of coffee, whatever. Even if you're, you know, at odds almost completely, very few people, very few, not none, very few people will, you know, like yell at you in person, right? You're gonna get through the exterior. You're gonna have some sense of, you know, at least they know you're trying, you're doing your best, you're helping, you're trying to answer questions. You know, the more people that you've met with before you have that town meeting, those same people are going to also have a hard time yelling at you at that meeting, right? So, you know, the more folks that you can bring onto your side before some of those bigger meetings, the better. Somebody who's, you know, kind of somewhat understanding and willing to listen on a one-on-one basis is much less likely to attack you, you know, at a public meeting. Okay, people agreeing 100%. Okay, yeah, it's, you know, we're human beings, right? And it's, you know, the chance that you're not going to find something upon which you can agree and then move from there is pretty small. Okay, anything else? Looks like we still have 47 people on the call, so I don't want to leave any unanswered questions. But I thank everyone very much for joining today. We had a great turnout. I will be sending out, I should have said this while everybody was still on, but next week, a week from today, we have a couple of town-run projects to talk about, and also a few representatives from municipalities. 34% of the dams in New Jersey are owned by either county or municipal government. So they're a big chunk of the audience. So whether you're like us and you work as a partner, or whether you're a consultant or a contractor, you know, there's a lot of folks out there who can make that decision to remove a dam if they know it's an option and the option is attractive to them. What happens when water power is needed in 2075? I hope that I'm around to know for sure. If you mean hydropower, if the person is asking whether or not we're destroying possibilities for hydropower, I can tell you that the dams that we're removing here in New Jersey, in 1810, 1880, 1910, they produced sufficient power to be useful to the community, but the size rivers that we're removing hydropower from, simply, there are not year-round flows that are reliably productive. It's just, it's the wrong place to be putting your dollars in. Now, do I believe that somewhere down the road, there will be a river and fish-friendly hydropower? I absolutely do. And I hope that here in 2075, probably don't hope that, because it wouldn't be a pretty picture, I'm sure. But I hope that there is an alternative to destroying a half a mile, 2 miles of a river to power, you know, a town. I hope that we're smart enough by then to figure it out. Okay. You haven't gotten to 100% small nuclear by then, we'll all be dead. Okay. All right, so thank you, presenters. Again, any last minute, you can unmute yourself and ask a question if you have one. And you have folks on here who can answer a lot of the calls. Yes, we can all guess who wrote the nuclear question. Okay. Well, then I guess we'll call it a day, and thank you all very much for joining. I'm so excited to see this much interest in dam removal for a number of reasons. And again, I hope you can join us next week. I'll be sending everyone who attended today's webinar an invitation. You may have gotten one already, but I'll send you another one for next week in case you haven't registered. You can go ahead and register. All righty, thanks very much, everybody, and hope to see you next week.
Thanks, Beth.
Okay,
Thanks.
thanks, everybody. And thanks to all the presenters. Thanks very
Beth.
much.
Thank you all. It was a very good meeting. See you.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. Okay. All right, Michelle, I'll be talking to you in a couple minutes.
Sounds good. Thanks, Beth. And if you want to share the recording.
Yep.
Okay.